One phone call broke 3 years of silence, and it ended with my father's credit card getting declined in front of 16 people. My name is Diana. I'm 32, and I run operations for a restaurant group that seats 3,000 people a week across 4 locations. I know how a check moves from kitchen to table the way most people know how to tie their shoes. So when my parents called after 3 years of silence and invited me to dinner to make amends, I should have asked one question before I said yes. Who's really at that table? I didn't ask. I drove 40 minutes to the Belvedere, walked through the front doors, and found 16 members of my family already seated around a long table covered in lobster tails, Wagyu steaks, and a $400 bottle of Bordeaux they'd started pouring before I even pulled into the parking lot. My father looked up from the head of the table, smiled, and said what I'd spent my whole life earning. "You're paying, right? You owe us that much." He thought he'd cornered me. He hadn't counted on the 2 sentences I was about to whisper to our waiter, or on what his own credit card was about to tell the entire family 15 minutes later. Let me back up a few weeks, before the parking lot full of cars I recognized, before my father tried to hand me a bill the size of a mortgage payment. I built my way up from bussing tables at a steakhouse when I was 17. Hostess at 19, server at 21, floor manager at 24, regional operations director by 30. I'm not rich. I have a 2-bedroom condo that's paid off, a retirement account I never touch, and one quiet habit. I always order sparkling water when I eat out. My staff thinks it's a quirk. It isn't. When you grow up paying for everyone else's steak, you learn to keep your own tab small enough to walk away from. That morning, my phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat I'd been removed from the day I became the family's villain. They had added me back. My mother's message was warm and careful, almost rehearsed. She said she and Dad had been doing a lot of reflecting and wanted to invite me to dinner to start healing as a family. "Just the 4 of us," she wrote. Then, 30 seconds later, the line that should have told me everything. "Family takes care of family, sweetheart. It's time we remembered that." She used to say that when I was 19 and she needed my server tips to cover the electric bill. She said it when Dad needed a cosigner on his truck. She said it when Brooke's first apartment fell through and I quietly paid the deposit. In my house, family takes care of family had always meant one thing: Diana takes care of family. I typed back, "I'll be there," and went back to work pretending my hands weren't shaking. 3 years earlier, my sister Brooke decided to open a cafe. Not a business plan, not a market study, just an idea she liked the look of and a $75,000 loan she needed a cosigner for. That cosigner was supposed to be me. When I asked to see her business plan, her margins, her lease terms, she had none. My mother's voice went flat. "She's your sister, you don't need a spreadsheet to love your sister." I said no, not because I didn't love Brooke, but because I'd spent years in this industry watching people pour savings into ideas with no foundation. My father stood up, pointed at the door, and said the words that closed it for 3 years. "If you won't help this family, you're not part of it." The next morning, I was removed from the family group chat. Nobody called. For 3 years, I was the daughter who loved money more than her own sister. Here's the part that's hard to admit. The silence almost broke me, not because they were right, but because I missed being needed. It took 2 years and a therapist, Dr. Kwan, to help me see it clearly. I had been the family fixer since I was 17. My first paycheck went to groceries. My tax refund went to Mom's dental work. When Dad's transmission blew, I paid for the rebuild and told him it was covered under warranty, because I knew he'd never accept help from his 22-year-old daughter. When Brooke got married, I covered the florist, the photographer, half the reception, and smiled while Mom gave a toast about raising 2 strong girls. 2 strong girls, 1 bill. I'd learned that the fastest way to keep peace in my family was to make sure nobody had to ask twice. I had trained them to see my wallet as a vending machine. Insert guilt, receive check. When the machine finally said out of order, they didn't fix it. They unplugged it and walked away. So when Mom's message came through after 3 years, the old reflex fired in my chest. Go fix it, pay whatever it costs, make it quiet again. But I also heard Dr. Kwan's voice. "You taught them you would always pay. That was your mistake to fix, not by paying more, but by stopping." My coworker Jess told me not to go. "Diana, this has ambush written all over it," she said, and she'd never even met my family. But I decided to go anyway. Not because I believed them and not because I expected an apology, but because I wanted to know if 3 years had changed anything, or if the silence had just been a longer version of the same old conversation, the one where I was expected to listen, agree, and pay. I set one rule for myself: 1 dinner, civil, no money, and if it felt wrong, I'd leave before dessert. I wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it to my steering wheel. When I pulled into the Belvedere's parking lot, I counted 9 cars, not 4. My stomach dropped before I even opened the door. Inside, I found 16 chairs, everyone filled, at a table already covered in lobster tails, Wagyu sliders, and a $400 bottle of wine that was already half empty. They'd been here a while and they'd been ordering hard. My mother stood up with both arms open, and the whole table applauded, like I was a returning soldier and not the daughter they'd ghosted for 3 years. Just the 4 of us, Mom had written. I sat down anyway, because what else do you do when 16 people are watching and a waiter is already pouring water into your glass? Once I sat, the small cuts started. My aunt joked about running all those fancy restaurants while the rest of us clipped coupons. My cousin asked if I ever felt guilty living so well while my parents were going through a rough patch. A rough patch nobody had told me about. Brooke added without looking up from her phone, she wouldn't know, she hasn't been around. Every comment landed with the same aim: Diana left, Diana has plenty, Diana owes. The one person at that table who treated me like a person and not a wallet was our waiter. Nathan, 19 or 20, running our 16 top almost single-handedly, refilling my water without being asked. I told him quietly, "You're doing great." He looked startled, like he'd forgotten customers could say that. I excused myself to the restroom about 40 minutes in. On the counter, I found my sister's phone, screen lit, with a notification from a group chat I'd never been added to. Dinner plan. 3 members, Mom, Dad, Brooke. I picked it up and scrolled. My mother had written 4 days earlier. "Don't tell Diana it's everyone. Once she's there with the whole family watching, she won't dare say no. She never could handle a scene." My father had replied. "Just make sure she sits at my end. I'll handle the ask." Brooke had added. "Order the good stuff before she gets there. Once it's on the table, she can't exactly send it back. Lol." I scrolled further back and found the real reason. My father's contracting business was failing. My mother had written 10 days earlier. "The bank called again. We need to figure out something before June." My father had answered, "Diana can cover us through spring. She's got more than enough." And then the line that finally made everything cold and clear. "It's not asking for money. It's letting her back into the family. She should be grateful we're even giving her this chance." I put the phone back exactly where I found it, washed my hands, and looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time in 15 years, I decided I was not going to pay for this. And the strangest part was how calm I felt. I walked back to the table with the same pleasant, unreadable expression I use when a health inspector shows up unannounced. Nobody noticed anything had changed. I started asking casual questions I already knew the answers to. "How's the cafe, Brooke? We closed, Market wasn't there." "How's the contracting business, Dad?" "Still doing commercial builds. Between projects right now. Economy's been tough. People tell you everything when they think you're the bank." Every sentence was a window into a house that was quietly on fire while everyone stood on the lawn calling the smoke barbecue. The pressure kept building, comment by comment, all pointing the same direction. "You have money, we see it, and we're reminding you in front of witnesses." Then Brooke, 3 glasses of wine in, cracked the surface completely. "Relax, big sister. It's just dinner, you can afford it." I asked, "Afford what?" She gestured at the whole table. "This, we ordered the good stuff since you're treating." Since you're treating, like it had already been decided in a meeting I wasn't invited to, which of course it had been. Dessert arrived. My father waited until the table was warm, full, and satisfied before he made his moves, strategic like always. He looked at me and said the thing he'd clearly been building toward all night. He needed me to help with a rough patch. "Nothing dramatic," he said, "just family helping family." Everyone at the table went quiet, waiting for me to reach for my card the way I always had. Instead, I put my napkin down, smiled, and said, "Let me go take care of things." My mother exhaled. My aunt patted her chest. My father unfolded his hands. Every single one of them thought I was about to pay. 15 years behind a host stand had taught me one true thing. The person who controls the check controls the room. My family had the table, the audience, and 3 years of pressure on their side. I had 2 sentences and a waiter named Nathan. I walked to the floor manager, David, with Nathan standing beside him, and I said it quietly, the way you say something that doesn't need the whole room's attention. "I'm not the host, and I won't be covering this table tonight. Please bring the full check to the gentleman at the head of the table, the one whose card is already on file for the reservation." Then I added, "Split my sparkling water onto a separate check and add 30% to mine for your team. You've earned it tonight." David didn't blink twice. "Done," he said. I paid my own small check on the spot and walked back to the table to wait. 10 minutes later, Nathan set the leather check presenter down directly in front of my father, not near me, in front of him, the man whose card was on file, who had told the whole table to put it all on this 2 hours earlier. The table went silent. My father opened the folio, refusing to look at the total in front of 16 people, and pulled out his card with the same confident flourish he'd used all night. "I've got it," he said, handing it to Nathan without breaking eye contact with me. "We're celebrating, remember?" Nathan came back in 2 minutes. "I'm sorry, sir, the card has been declined." My father's smile held for 1 more second, then went out like a switched-off light. "Run it again," he said. Nathan disappeared and came back with the same answer. My father pulled out a second card, then a third, hidden behind his driver's license like a last bullet he'd forgotten he was carrying. All 3 failed. The table of 16 sat in total silence, no forks moving. No wine being poured, just my father's pride quietly folding into a wallet he couldn't close fast enough. He looked at me not with anger yet, but with the raw look of a man realizing the safety net he'd counted on was gone. I picked up my sparkling water, took a sip, and said, "I don't owe you, I never did." His chair scraped back. "Diana, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Dad. Your card was declined. That's between you and your bank." My mother started crying, loud enough for nearby tables to notice. "After everything we've done for you, what did you do for me, Mom?" I asked, my voice level. "Tell me in front of everyone what you've done for me in the last 3 years. Brooke slammed her hand on the table. "This is so typical. You always make everything about you." My aunt reached for my arm. "Diana, dear, your father is clearly embarrassed. Can't you just—" "No," I said, one word, clear and final. Then my father broke, not with anger this time, but with something worse. His voice dropped. "Diana, please, we're drowning." For one moment, I saw the scared man behind the performance and I ached for him. Then he added, "And you'd let us?" The ache stopped right there because even drowning, he was still reaching for my wallet instead of my hand. I stood up calm and unhurried. "Dad, I'm sorry you're struggling, I mean that. But this," I gestured at the empty platters, the upside-down wine bottles, the 16 faces watching me like I was the villain in a story they'd rehearsed all week. "This isn't asking for help. This is a trap. You didn't invite me to make amends. You invited me to make a payment." My mother tried. "That's not fair, Diana. We just wanted you back." "You wanted me back for what I could cover, Mom." I read the messages. "She can cover us through spring." The table went white. "If you need real help, I will sit down with you and a financial counselor and we'll make a plan. No tricks, no audience, no lobster, but I'm not paying this bill. I didn't order it, nobody told me about it, and I don't owe it to you. I never did." I picked up my purse and said the last thing I'd say to my mother that night. "You always told me family takes care of family. So why was I the only one who ever did?" I walked out past the hostess stand, past the heavy glass doors. Nathan caught me near the coat check with my receipt. "Thank you," he said quietly. I told him again, "You're doing great," and walked out into the warm evening air. I sat in my car, opened the family group chat already flooding with angry messages, and without reading them, scrolled to the bottom and tapped leave group. Then I drove home in the same silence I'd driven there in, except this time the silence was mine. No one called that night, or the next day, or the day after. A few weeks later, I learned, through my cousin Megan, that my father's contracting business had actually failed 18 months earlier, and my mother had been covering the gap with maxed-out credit cards. They sold the house and moved to a smaller rental. I called my father once, 6 weeks later, and offered to sit down with him and a financial counselor just like I'd promised at that table. He hung up. I haven't called again, but the offer still stands. I learned that the most expensive thing you can buy is other people's comfort with your silence, and the night I stopped paying for it was the night I finally got rich. That's my story. 16 seats, 1 glass of water, and a credit card that told the truth nobody else would. If you've ever been the family bank, hear me. Helping is a choice, not a debt, and a boundary doesn't have to be loud to be unbreakable. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.